Growing up, my older brother, Ethan, was the golden child. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, and even when he messed up, there were always excuses made for him. When he got married and had kids, that dynamic didn't change, it just extended to his children. Now I'm the child-free aunt, aka the free babysitter, and no one in the family seems to think twice about dumping his kids on me whenever it's convenient for them. At first, I didn't mind helping out. His kids, Liam, 9, and Sophie, 7, were cute when they were little, and it felt nice to spend time with them. But as they got older, they became entitled. Ethan and his wife, Kelly, don't discipline them at all, and it shows. Liam bosses me around like he's my manager, and Sophie throws tantrums if I don't cater to her every whim. They never say thank you, and they've started demanding things like I owe them. A few weeks ago, Ethan asked if I could watch the kids for the weekend while he and Kelly went on a much-needed couples retreat. I agreed because I felt guilty saying no, even though I had plans of my own. Big mistake. The entire weekend was a nightmare. Liam and Sophie treated me like I was their maid. Liam refused to clean up after himself, leaving dirty dishes and toys everywhere, and Sophie threw a fit when I told her we couldn't order pizza 3 times in a row. At one point, Liam said, "You're supposed to do this stuff for us. You're the adult." I was floored. It got worse when Sophie spilled juice all over my couch and blamed me for not watching her closely enough. When I told them to clean up their mess, they outright refused. Liam even had the audacity to say, "That's your job." I tried calling Ethan to talk some sense into them, but he and Kelly didn't pick up the phone all weekend. When they finally came back, I told Ethan everything. His response? Well, they're just kids. What do you expect? No apology, no acknowledgement of how disrespectful they were, just excuses. I decided right then and there that I wasn't going to babysit for them again, no matter what. Fast forward to last weekend, and Ethan called me out of the blue, asking if I could watch the kids again because Kelly had a last-minute work trip, and he needed a break. When I said no, he got defensive, saying I was punishing his kids for something that wasn't their fault. I explained that I'm not a built-in babysitter and that his kids need to learn how to respect others. Ethan didn't take it well. He said I was being selfish and that family is supposed to help each other out. My parents have since gotten involved, saying I'm overreacting and should let it go because they're just kids. After that phone call with Ethan, I thought the matter was settled. I made my boundaries clear, right? Wrong. A couple of days later, my mom called me. She wasn't angry, but she had that tone. You know, the tone where you know you're about to get a guilt trip. "Sweetheart," she began, "I know Ethan can be a little difficult, but you know how hard it is for him and Kelly. They have so much on their plate. Can't you just help out this one time?" I couldn't believe it. "Mom, I've already helped plenty. Do you know how disrespectful those kids were the last time? They treated me like a servant." "Well, they're young," she said, brushing it off. "You need to be patient with them." "Mom, they're old enough to know basic manners. Ethan and Kelly are the ones who need to teach them that," I argued. She sighed, and I could tell she wasn't really listening. Family helps family. It's just what we do. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. That's when I realized she didn't see my side at all. To her, and apparently to Ethan, I was just a free babysitter, and my feelings didn't matter. I ended the call, feeling drained and frustrated. But, of course, it didn't end there. A few days later, Ethan showed up at my apartment, unannounced, with Liam and Sophie in tow. He had this fake cheerful tone, like he was trying to butter me up. "Hey, sis. Thought we'd swing by and see you," he said, grinning. I eyed the kids, who were already making themselves at home by dumping their backpacks on my couch. "What's going on, Ethan?" I asked, suspicious. "Oh, nothing. I just need to run a few errands. It'll only take a couple of hours. You don't mind watching them, do you?" My jaw dropped. "Are you serious right now? I told you I'm not babysitting anymore." "It's just for a little bit," he said, his grin fading. "You're really going to turn me away?" "Yes, Ethan, I am," I said firmly. "You can't just show up here and expect me to drop everything for you." He looked genuinely offended. "Wow, I didn't think you were this selfish. They're your niece and nephew. What kind of aunt doesn't want to spend time with her family?" "The kind of aunt who's tired of being disrespected," I shot back. "You're their parent, Ethan. You need to figure this out." He muttered something under his breath, grabbed the kids, and stormed out. I thought that was the end of it, but nope. The next day, I got a call from my dad. "Why are you being so difficult with Ethan?" he asked, skipping any kind of greeting. "Dad, you don't know the full story," I said, already bracing myself for another guilt trip. "I know enough," he interrupted. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Ethan needs help, and you're just sitting there, refusing to do anything. It's not right." "Dad, it's not my job to parent his kids," I said, trying to stay calm. "They treat me like garbage, and Ethan doesn't care. Why should I keep putting myself in that situation?" "Because that's what family does," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I hung up feeling completely drained. It seemed like no one in my family cared about how I felt. To them, I was just being difficult. After that call, I felt like I was in a losing battle. No one was listening to me. My family had this warped idea that just because I wasn't married or didn't have kids of my own, my time was somehow less valuable. And Ethan? He was taking full advantage of that. But I stood my ground. For a few weeks, there was radio silence. No calls, no surprise drop-ins, nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally understood. That peace didn't last long. One Friday evening, I came home from work to find Liam and Sophie sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. I froze, my stomach dropping. "What are you two doing here?" I asked, walking up to them. "Dad dropped us off," Sophie said nonchalantly, like this was totally normal. "What?" I stared at them, incredulous. "Where is he? Did he say when he's coming back?" Liam shrugged. "He said he'd be back later." I was furious. No call, no text, nothing. Ethan had just dumped his kids on me without even asking. I ushered them inside, my mind racing. Once they were settled in with some snacks and a movie, I tried calling Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I texted him, "Ethan, you need to come get your kids. This is not okay." Hours passed, and there was no response. By now, it was late, and I had no choice but to let the kids spend the night. I set up the couch for them, but even then, they complained. Liam wanted the blanket Sophie had. Sophie didn't like the pillow. They bickered non-stop until I finally snapped and told them to go to sleep. The next morning, I called Ethan again. This time, he picked up. "Hey," he said casually, like nothing was wrong. "Ethan, what the hell? You dropped your kids off at my place without even asking." "Oh, come on," he said, brushing me off. "I knew you'd take care of them. What's the big deal?" "The big deal is you're treating me like a free babysitter. I'm not doing this anymore, Ethan. Come get your kids now." He sighed dramatically. "Fine, I'll be there soon." When he finally showed up, he acted like I was overreacting. He didn't even apologize. Instead, he said, "You really need to lighten up, sis. They're just kids." I didn't hold back. "No, Ethan. This isn't about them being kids. This is about you being a terrible parent. You dump them on me whenever it's convenient for you, and you don't care how it affects me. This is your responsibility, not mine." He rolled his eyes and left with the kids, but not before muttering, "You're so dramatic." I thought that would be the end of it, but nope. My parents called me again later that day. "Ethan said you were rude to him," my mom began. "You know how hard things are for him and Kelly right now. Couldn't you just cut him some slack?" "Mom, I'm not going to be his crutch anymore," I said firmly. "He's using me because he knows you and Dad won't hold him accountable. If you're so concerned, why don't you help him out for once?" She didn't have an answer for that. After that conversation, I felt drained. It seemed like no matter what I said, my family just couldn't, or wouldn't, see things from my perspective. To them, Ethan's struggles automatically meant I had to pick up the slack, and any resistance on my part was treated as selfishness. But I knew I wasn't in the wrong. This wasn't about me not caring for Liam and Sophie. I love them, they were great kids when they weren't treating me like their personal maid. The issue was their father, my brother, who had turned my kindness into his personal safety net. The next few weeks were relatively quiet. I didn't hear much from Ethan, and I honestly hoped that meant he had figured out how to handle things on his own. But deep down, I wasn't holding my breath. Sure enough, the cycle repeated itself. One Saturday morning, I woke up to my doorbell ringing. I looked at my phone, 7:15 a.m. still groggy. I stumbled to the door and opened it, only to find Liam and Sophie standing there with their backpacks. Behind them was Ethan, standing next to his car. "Ethan," I said, my voice a mix of exhaustion and anger. "What is this?" "Oh, hey," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Kelly and I have an appointment, and we'll be gone most of the day. Thought it'd be easier to just drop them off here." "No. No way." I crossed my arms, blocking the doorway. "I told you I'm not doing this anymore." "Come on, don't be difficult," he said, his tone annoyed. "It's just for a few hours." "Ethan, I am not your babysitter," I said firmly. "You can't keep doing this to me." The kids, sensing the tension, looked uncomfortable. I knelt down to their level. "Liam, Sophie, I love you guys, but you can't stay here today. I'm sorry." Ethan scoffed. "Wow. So you're just going to abandon your niece and nephew? What kind of aunt are you? What kind of brother dumps his kids on someone who already said no?" I shot back. We stood there, locked in a silent standoff. Eventually, Ethan muttered something under his breath, grabbed the kids, and left. That was my breaking point. After Ethan stormed off with the kids, I felt a mix of anger and relief. For once, I had stood my ground, but I knew this wasn't over. Ethan wasn't the type to let things go quietly. Sure enough, a few hours later, my phone started buzzing with messages from my parents. My mom texted me, "Ethan just called us. He said you refused to help with Liam and Sophie today. What's going on?" Then Dad texted, "Your brother needs support right now. Family helps family." I took a deep breath before responding. "I've been helping for months, Mom. Ethan dumps the kids on me all the time without asking. I told him I can't keep doing it, and he still showed up unannounced this morning." Mom replied, "He's going through a lot, sweetie. Can't you cut him some slack? He's your brother." I responded, "And I'm not a free babysitter. I have my own life, too." They didn't reply immediately, which was typical. When I didn't do what they wanted, they would either guilt-trip me or give me the silent treatment. I figured they were regrouping to come up with their next argument. Later that evening, Ethan called me. Against my better judgment, I answered. "What do you want, Ethan?" I said, bracing myself. "I just don't get it," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "We're a family. Why are you being so difficult? Kelly and I needed a break, and you made us feel like we're bad parents for asking." "You're not bad parents for needing a break," I said, trying to stay calm. "But you are for expecting me to drop everything whenever you decide you need one. You don't even ask, Ethan. You just assume I'll say yes." "Because you always used to," he shot back. "Exactly. And look where that got us. You've taken advantage of me, and now you're mad that I won't let you anymore." The line went quiet for a moment. I thought maybe he was finally starting to understand, but then he said, "You're being selfish, you know that?" "Selfish?" I laughed bitterly. "I've rearranged my life for months to help you out. How is it selfish to want my boundaries respected?" "You wouldn't understand," he said. "You don't have kids." I rolled my eyes. "And whose fault is that? You chose to have kids, Ethan. Not me. I'm happy to help when I can, but I'm not obligated to parent your children." He hung up after that, and I felt both victorious and exhausted. For the next few weeks, things were tense. My parents weren't speaking to me much, and Ethan only contacted me when absolutely necessary. It felt lonely, but I also felt lighter without the constant burden of babysitting. Then, one day, Kelly called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," she said awkwardly. "I know things have been rough between you and Ethan, but I wanted to say, I get it." I blinked. That wasn't what I was expecting. "You do?" "Yeah," she said with a sigh. "Ethan told me what happened, and honestly, I think he needed to hear it. I've been telling him for months that he relies on you too much, but he wouldn't listen to me. Maybe now he will." Her words were like a balm to my soul. Finally, someone understood. "Thanks, Kelly," I said. "That means a lot." She hesitated. "We're looking into hiring a sitter for weekends. It's long overdue. I'm sorry for all the stress we put on you." Hearing her apology was a relief, but I knew this wasn't just about Kelly. Ethan still needed to take accountability, and I wasn't holding my breath for that. In the following days, I noticed a shift. The guilt trips from my parents became less frequent, and Ethan wasn't blowing up my phone as much. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was able to breathe. I even spent a weekend catching up with friends and finally started on a few personal projects I'd been putting off for months. But of course, the calm didn't last long. One Saturday afternoon, I was in the middle of painting my living room when there was a knock at the door. I froze, paintbrush in hand, already having a bad feeling about who it might be. When I opened the door, there was Ethan, with Liam and Sophie in tow. "What are you doing here?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Look, I know you're still upset," he started, holding his hands up like he was pleading with me. "But Kelly and I really need just a couple of hours. Please, I wouldn't be here if we weren't desperate." "Ethan," I said, my tone already edged with frustration, "we've had this conversation. You can't just show up like this." "I tried calling you, but you didn't answer," he said, his voice tinged with exasperation. "That's because I'm busy," I said, motioning toward the paint roller and tarp visible behind me. "Come on, you love the kids," he said, gesturing toward Liam and Sophie, who were looking up at me with their big, hopeful eyes. "It's just for a couple of hours. Please." I felt a pang of guilt. Those kids weren't the problem, after all, but I had to stay firm. "No, Ethan. I can't. I told you I need boundaries, and you're still ignoring them." He stared at me for a moment, clearly upset, but then he sighed and turned to the kids. "Come on, guys. Auntie's too busy to hang out with you." It felt like a low blow, but I held my ground. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me with guilt anymore. Later that evening, I got a call from my mom. "Ethan told me what happened today," she said, her tone sharp. "How could you turn him away like that? Those kids adore you." I closed my eyes, gripping my phone tightly. "Mom, I've explained this to you already. I'm not their third parent. Ethan can't keep showing up unannounced and expecting me to drop everything for him." "Well, family helps family," she said, the familiar refrain that was beginning to sound more like a weapon than a value. "Funny how that only applies when it's me doing the helping," I shot back. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could tell she didn't have a response to that. "I love Liam and Sophie," I continued, my voice softer now. "But I'm not going to let Ethan keep taking advantage of me. He needs to step up as a parent and stop relying on me as a backup." Eventually, Kelly and I spoke again. She admitted that Ethan was still struggling to adjust to their new schedule, but she reassured me they were actively looking for a sitter. "I know it's hard for you to say no," she said. "But you're right to do it. Ethan needs to realize that he can't just expect you to solve his problems." Hearing her say that felt validating, but I knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. Ethan wasn't going to change overnight, and my parents would probably keep giving me grief about it. But for now, I was proud of myself for standing my ground. It wasn't easy being the bad guy in their eyes, but I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just finally learning to prioritize my own needs for once. A week after that confrontation, I started to notice small changes. Kelly seemed to be stepping in more often, and Ethan hadn't shown up unannounced since our last encounter. My phone wasn't blowing up with requests every other day, and I was finally able to settle into a routine that didn't revolve around other people's emergencies. But then, the family group chat erupted. Ethan sent a long message that started with, "I don't usually vent, but I feel like no one understands how hard it is for me and Kelly right now." He went on about how stressful it was to juggle work, the kids, and life in general. Then, he ended with, "It would be nice if certain people could show a little more compassion instead of turning their backs on family." I knew that was directed at me. Before I could even process it, my mom jumped in. "Ethan, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Some people just don't know what it means to step up for family anymore." And then my dad chimed in, "Back in my day, we didn't have the luxury of saying no. We just did what needed to be done." I stared at my phone, debating whether to respond. I knew they were baiting me, but I also felt the heat rising in my chest. I didn't want to let their passive-aggressive comments slide. So I took a deep breath and typed, "Ethan, I get that you're struggling, and I'm sorry you're feeling overwhelmed. But I've helped out more times than I can count. What I can't do is sacrifice my own mental health and life plans because you're unwilling to find a proper solution. You're a grown adult with kids, it's your responsibility, not mine. And Mom, Dad, if you feel so strongly about stepping up, you're more than welcome to pitch in." I hit send and immediately muted the chat. Later that evening, my sister, who lives out of state, called me. "I saw the group chat," she said, laughing. "You're officially the black sheep of the family now." "Tell me something I don't know," I replied, rolling my eyes. "Seriously, though, good for you. Someone had to say it. You know how Mom and Dad are, they're stuck in their old school mindset. And Ethan? He's just milking the whole poor me act because it works on them." Hearing her validation helped. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy for setting boundaries, even if it felt like the whole family was against me. A few days later, I got a surprise visit from Ethan. This time, He didn't have the kids with him, and he looked genuinely apologetic. "Can we talk?" he asked, standing awkwardly on my doorstep. I let him in, unsure of what to expect. He started by admitting he'd been unfair to me. "I've been selfish," he said. "I've relied on you too much because I knew you'd always say yes. But I realized after that group chat that I haven't been fair to you." I was stunned. Ethan wasn't the type to admit fault, so this felt like a major breakthrough. He went on to explain that he and Kelly had finally hired a sitter, and they were working on being more organized with their schedules. "I'm sorry for putting so much on you," he said. "You didn't deserve that." Hearing those words was a relief, but I also knew actions spoke louder than apologies. Over the next few weeks, things started to improve. Ethan stopped relying on me as his go-to babysitter, and I began to feel a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. My parents still made the occasional passive-aggressive comment, but I didn't let it get to me. I knew I'd done the right thing. Was it easy? No. But setting those boundaries was the best decision I could have made, not just for myself, but for my relationship with my family. In the end, I wasn't the villain of the story, I was just someone who finally learned to say no. So now here I am, finally standing my ground and reclaiming my time, but my family still seems divided. Ethan has been better about not asking me to babysit, and I appreciate his apology, but my parents still act like I've committed some unthinkable betrayal by refusing to be at their beck and call. I feel guilty sometimes, especially when I see how hard it is for Ethan and Kelly to juggle everything. But at the same time, I know it's not my responsibility to fix their problems at the cost of my own well-being. So, am I the a-hole for saying no to constantly babysitting my brother's kids and setting boundaries with my family? Let me know what you think, and also I'd appreciate if you helped me by subscribing to the channel.